Halloween 2. It's one of the only Halloween films I've ever heard John Carpenter vehemently say he doesn't like. He's called it an abomination as early as 1984. I'm wondering why he says that. Are we watching the same film? I mean, when you look at the franchise and you look at the reception that the fans have, probably the last sequel that has a negative reception is the sequel, Halloween 2 from 1981. I think there's a lot of reasons that go into why he says that. Now, obviously, this is just going to be my opinion, and what John's saying is just as valid. For God's sakes, he created it. But man, it really bugs me that he doesn't like this film. Let's kind of look into Halloween 2, and then we'll kind of give our reasonings why I, and maybe others, might disagree with him. One of the things to note is when I was researching these films, Halloween 2 came out strictly from contractual obligations. He was supposed to do the movie with Erwinia Blondes, even went as far ahead as to make a deal with a different company, Avco Embassy, which really pissed off Erwinia Blondes and basically took him to court and forced him to write the sequel. It seemed like John and Deborah, they wanted to move on. You gotta respect that, but we're already approaching the script from a negative aspect. I mean, imagine you're a director making a film, and then you get sued into basically having to write a sequel. Tell me writing a script like that wouldn't be hard to do with having your full heart and soul into it. One of the big notes of contention, and probably the biggest, is the fact that John hates that he wrote them as brother and sister. It's really interesting that he says that. I think one of the questions people have is, was he just riffing off of Star Wars, with the family member thing being revealed? I guess possibly, but at the same time, this doesn't feel anything like a Luke, I am your father in any stretch. I think the biggest compliment I can give Halloween 2 is how it handles the brother and sister aspect and the reveal. Every bit of it makes total sense to me. They wanted to protect Laurie, so not even Dr. Loomis knew about her being adopted and being part of the Myers family. They really wanted to keep it a secret. To me, that's an excellent reveal, and it's handled beautifully in Halloween 2. That's something that I scratched my head at why John wouldn't like. If he wants to take out the brother and sister thing, that makes all the sense in the world to me, if that's all it is. But, okay, so let's do the movies again years later and just have Laurie Strode come back and they're just not brother and sister? I don't know. I can't speak for John, but I can't see him just being like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, he got paid for Halloween 2018, of course, but it's always going to be impossible to really know how he feels without that money being involved. No hate, I'd take the money too, but if you asked him what to change, I just don't think not making them brother and sister would be his answer. It would probably be having just new characters altogether, which he sort of did when he went to go write a treatment for Halloween 4 when he put a bid in for that to do the film. Not a lot of people know that either, and he doesn't like to talk about it, but it's all filed, it's all legal stuff you can learn about in those books, Taking Shape. Taking Shape 2. I highly recommend those books. I've done multiple videos on them. I think Halloween 2 has probably the most vintage Halloween atmosphere out of any film. I think the way the music is updated with that gothic sense that Alan Howarth gave it just elevates it to a whole new level. Now, I love the original score the most, but to say that the Halloween 2 score doesn't elevate that film would be to lie. It's also pretty impressive how Rick Rosenthal coming in wanted to make this film feel as close to the original as possible. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily the closest movie to feel like it takes place a moment after, but I think it beats most of them. Hell, I think Halloween 2 feels more closely connected to Part 1 than, say, Back to the Future 2 does. I think Loomis even looked basically identical to the way he did in the first movie. The opening of the film is so great, with Loomis coming out in the front yard singing Michael's Missing, and that classic, I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight, you don't know what death is. One of the things I think Halloween 2 does just as good is having that skeleton pumpkin play in the beginning of the intro, the way the first one had that pumpkin playing. It's just perfect. Sometimes they realize you're not going to improve upon something, so do it again, but give it its own feel, and they did that so well. The skeleton pumpkin art is some of my favorite art from the Halloween franchise altogether. I know Jamie Lee Curtis has been interviewed about Halloween 2, complaining that her character more or less didn't have anything to do and she finds it odd. Me, on the other hand, I don't look at it as a crutch. I look at it as a way to give new characters an arc for this film. You've got her love interest, who's one of the EMTs, and then Bud, the older EMT who can't help but get himself into trouble. I think when you look at the slasher genre as a whole, and all the movies there are characters that stand the test of time. Whether you like them, they say memorable lines, or the scenes they're in are memorable as well. And I think Bud, when you look at the slasher genre as a whole, has to be a top 10 character. With amazing lines, he's a little bit of a jerk, but a relatable jerk. You see that he's a guy that just comes to work, does his job. He's not going to really go out of his way to do anything more than that, and he wants to have a good time. I think deep down we're all a little bit like Bud. Something that happened that had nothing to do with John really or Deborah, except for the fact that Deborah didn't have a problem with him playing the role, so maybe she does have more to do with it than I'm leading on, is Dick Warlock coming into the role of the Shape. Now, Nick Castle is perfect for the first Halloween film, but this film, Halloween 2, feels so much more sinister, right? I think you would probably agree with that. There's this spooky creepiness to the first film, but there's a sinister nature to it too, with the way the film looks, that haunted hospital, the dark alleyways, the way Dick Warlock's face shapes that mask. I thought it was a different mask for a long time until Dick explained that no, it's just the mask from the first film, and he took it and put it on and just reshaped the entire thing. Dick Warlock's Michael is one of the creepiest, most sinister, evil Myers. I love the way he moves. I love the breathing that he does in the film. To me, he is as identifiable to Michael as the way Kane Hodder is to Jason. If you ask me who my favorite Michael is, if it's not George P. Wilbur, the next one I would say is absolutely Dick Warlock. Some of the reasons, too, that I think might color John's opinion is, this is something I didn't really learn that much until reading Taking Shape 2 as well, is that Rick Rosenthal might not have been the guy for the job in terms of his execution of the project. John Carpenter did in fact come in and rewrite scenes, reshoot scenes altogether, and put stuff in the movie that maybe Rick just didn't handle all that well. It's one of those things, when you watch these documentaries for these films on like the Scream Factory Blu-rays, albeit they're done very well, or even the 25 Years of Terror documentary, you're definitely learning about the films, and it's not like they're lying, but when you read into it more, and these books that get into what the daily showed and what the script notes and all showed, it looked like John was a little bit more annoyed than anything having to come in and either fix or reshoot stuff altogether. Mind you, this was a film that he was basically contractually obligated to write and produce. There was no way John was going to like anything about this film. Let's just face it. Tommy Lee Wallace also famously said that John felt the pressures of the marketplace when it came to writing this film as well. Well, if you don't know what that means, by 1981, slasher movies had gotten extremely bloody and violent. Obviously, Halloween predated that with making it the spooky, bloodless horror film, which really wasn't even the first movie to do that. If you want to get technical, obviously Texas Chainsaw Massacre was bloodless. You'll see some blood stains, but they never happened in action on camera. Halloween followed the same suit, and it fits it for that movie. I really think if you put blood in any sense in Halloween, none of it would work. It just doesn't feel or look like that type of movie. But again, I think when the fans look at Halloween 2, the gore sequences in here are maybe not tasteful is the right word, but definitely artistic. It's not like there's just throat slashes and blood gushing everywhere, but the hypodermic needle scene is almost as sensual as it is evil. The close-up shot of that needle going into the girl's face, the eyes right in the camera. Also the scene of the nurse getting melted into that super hot tub in the back, that therapeutic tub. It's perfect for that movie. Yes, it gets gory and looks kind of gross when she comes up the last time, but the timing and precision of all that stuff just works. I think if more slasher films would have adopted the way Halloween 2 did it, they'd be even better, quite frankly. There is a little bit of bloodshed in this film. We have to go back to the beginning of the movie where Dick Warlock's Michael Myers makes his first, in essence, kill of the film on screen, where that girl is on the phone with her friend. Michael comes in, hits her right in the chest, and the blood splats. But it almost feels like an almost Italian-esque horror film with that close-up shot of Michael, and you get to see his eyes for a second. Again, I think it's executed perfectly. Who directed that? John or Rick? Not too sure, but in essence, it doesn't really matter. Does John really dislike this film? Don't know. I just think that there's too many things involved with the making of that would color his actual response. Part of me just doesn't think if he was really going to write the Halloween 2 that he wanted, it wouldn't have the characters that he had done in the first movie at all. He'd want the next one to sort of stand on its own 2 feet. And how do I know that? Look at what they did next. John and Deborah didn't even think Michael was a seller to begin with, much less putting Jamie Lee Curtis in the movie again. They did Halloween 3, which I think is perfect. But it's so interesting when a creator dislikes something that the masses seem to like. I think Halloween 2 is among the best of the Halloween sequels, and quite frankly, I think it's the third best Halloween film. Sure, there are some things that the first Halloween probably does a little bit better, but in terms of the slasher genre, I think Halloween 2 is up there with the rest. Do I think it's better than the Blumhouse trilogy? Absolutely. I'm not really here to pick on those movies, but my point is, with John's involvement in those films and being able to do the music, which he did a great job with, and the money involved, I just don't think you'll ever get a really true opinion on how John feels about those movies. Look at Halloween Kills, it's essentially Halloween 2 with just some extra stuff in it, and the only difference is they're not brother and sister. According to John, that's enough to make him love the direction of the Halloween films. I just don't buy it. Like I said, this isn't a video of me saying John is necessarily wrong. It's his opinion, and my opinion is that Halloween 2 is one of the best Halloween films. But what do you guys think about this whole thing? Why do you think John really dislikes Halloween 2? Do you think it's simply the script that he wrote that he changed his mind on? Do you think that there's just too many outside elements that colored his opinion of this film from the very start of writing the first word of the script? Let me know down below, guys. Happy spooky season. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.